This brief lecture is going to cover the introduction of forensics, give you a little bit of guidelines of how this job would work, and the description, as well as a brief history of forensics. There is a much larger timeline in your books, and this covers pages 4 through 18 in your book if you choose to read that as supplemental material. So the basic definition is the study and application of science to matters of law. And what they do is they analyze, compare, identify, and interpret physical evidence involved in crimes. This goes over the kind of basic job description, so I'll let you read through that. Another thing on this slide, it talks about the derivative of the word forensics, and it comes from the Latin word forensis, which means forum, or a place where judicial proceedings were held. As we have seen through the first activity or so, good observational skills are needed using all 5 sentences. How about 5 sentences? Analytical skills, so identify problems, draw conclusions, organize all that information. And then deductive reasoning is we draw conclusions based on facts or evidence. Some of what I thought was more cool stuff from the timeline, like I said, it is much longer in your book, and there are some really cool things in there as well. But 700s, Chinese were the first people to use fingerprints to establish any sort of identity. So what they would do is they would put it on their art fixtures, their clay sculptures, but there wasn't any sort of like classification system. This was just like, hey, I did this, let me put my stamp on it or my fingerprint on it to identify me as the artist. In 904, they used gunpowder in warfare called flying fires, which I thought was kind of a fun term. In 1248, they recorded a description of how to distinguish drowning from strangulation, and this is the first recorded application of medical knowledge to crime solving. And then we jump about 600 years. Scotland Yard, which is London's detective force, first uses bullet comparison to catch a murderer. In 36, a Scottish chemist named James Marsh uses toxicology in a jury trial, and that was for arson. 1880, another Scotsman, he was working in Tokyo at the time, uses fingerprints to exonerate an innocent burglary suspect. 1903, so we're getting a little more recent now. The NYC Police Department starts to create fingerprint files for any arrested persons, and then this system was then adopted by the state prison 2 years later. 1905, Teddy Roosevelt establishes the FBI. 1906, bite mark evidence is first used in an English court, convicts 2 hungry burglars using teeth marks found in cheese at the scene. So they must have gotten hungry as they were, I don't know, grabbing stuff, not sure. 1924, first U.S. crime lab implemented in LA. 86, so we jumped quite a few years, DNA makes its appearance on the scene. And now 07, this was the latest number that I had, approximately 400 crime labs and nearly 40,000 people in the U.S. are involved in forensics. So as far as crime laboratories, there are 4 major federal ones. The FBI is one. It's the largest crime lab in the world. I remember that was established by Teddy Roosevelt in 05. The DEA stands for Drug Enforcement Administration, and that analyzes drugs that are seized. The ATF is the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, and that analyzes everything in its title: alcoholic beverages, weapons, explosives. And then the U.S. Postal Inspection Service, which I think sometimes flies under the radar a little bit, is crimes involving the Postal Service. So this one would have been involved, what year was it? I don't remember the year at the moment, but I think it was right after September 11th. So 2001, there's a whole bunch of anthrax that was sent to lots of different government facilities, and that is where the U.S. Postal Inspection Service would have gotten involved. As far as crime labs in Illinois, they are kind of centered in one location, a good chunk of them anyway. There is a big science center, forensic science center in Chicago. There are a whole bunch of forensics facilities in Springfield. They have a research and development lab, they have DNA lab in toxicology. They also have just kind of a normal forensics lab, and then you can see where the other forensics labs are. And there is one in Morton, so that one is local. All right, this is that TV show that I was talking about that you guys are going to watch for me. I'm also going to include the link on Google Classroom in case you can't get to it from this video, which my guess is you will not be able to. So please fill in the questions as you watch it. And I hope you enjoy it because I thought it was really engaging.